President Muhammadu Buhari today urged the board of the newly incorporated Nigerian National Petroleum Company NNPC Limited to ensure strict compliance with corporate governance principles that place premium on doing business with the highest ethical standards, integrity, and transparency. Inaugurating the board chaired by Senator Marjorie Chuba Okadigbo, the president charged them to focus on profitability and operate at par with industry peers across the world. The president reminded the board members that they came on board as a result of the reforms put forward by the Petroleum Industry Act PIA 2021, which seeks to reposition the Nigerian petroleum industry to a commercially viable and competitive industry in line with global business dynamics and best practices. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited is mandated to focus on profitability and continuous value creation beyond the simple fulfillment of legal and regulatory requirements. NNPC Limited is expected to operate at par with its industry peers across the world, like I said earlier, while acting as an enabler company that will foster the development of other sectors of our economy. The inauguration of this board is a major step in the ongoing transition to a more viable petroleum industry that will attract investment to support our economic growth and generate employment to millions of our people. President Buhari directed that there should be full alignment and synergy between NNPC Limited, the Upstream Regulatory Commission, and the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority in compliance with the provisions of the law in all respects to deliver the onerous reforms envisaged for the energy industry. Now, what exactly is the task ahead for the newly inaugurated NNPC board? And what are the things that must be done to make the industry more viable? This is our focus on Nigeria Today, and guests shall be providing answers to some of these questions soon. I am Lydia Ochi. Welcome to the program. With me in the studio to discuss the task ahead for the NNPC board is Obinaya Urakpa, a personal development expert and entrepreneur. Welcome to Nigeria Today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Good day, Nigerians.
It won't be out of place to also say Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year, Lydia.
Also joining us via Zoom is Mr. Odion Omofoman, energy expert and CEO of New Hampshire Group. Welcome to the program. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and thank you very much for having me on the program.
All right. Let me start with my guest in the studio. Let's start with the expectations from the Petroleum Industry Act PIA. What is your comment on the inauguration of the NNPC board?
Okay, first I will say congratulations, Nigeria. Congratulations, Senator Marjorie Okadigbo and her team in the board. She serves as the chairperson. It's been over 20 years coming. I dare say this year will make it 21 years that a lot of debate has gone into whether we should reform the oil industry. A lot of back and forth over how it should be done. On 3 specific occasions I can remember, whether it's 2009 or 2012 or some other years very close to 2021, we've seen a lot of exchange. It's a lot of mistrust among all stakeholders over how it should be. The IOCs, international oil companies, were not too sure how the different clauses in the bill would affect them. It was initially called PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill. But we finally arrived in 2021 in August, basically 16th August, when it was finally passed as a bill by the National Assembly and then followed with the assent given by the President. Now, the implication of that is that reforms will not happen. Now, I'll quickly say that the oil sector contributes, is just 10% of the GDP of Nigeria, but serves as 90% of the foreign exchange earning for Nigeria, also serving as 60% of our overall income. So whenever the oil sector sneezes, Nigeria catches cold. Incidentally, because of the lack of the diversification of our economy, where we focus primarily on the mono economy, which is oil, we've been left in a very, very tight corner. And again, because Nigeria hasn't played so much in the offshore sector, where we depend on the IOCs, rather depending on signing profit share agreements with them and joint venture agreements with them supervised by the NNPC, the old NNPC. It has been a little bit of a bumpy ride for us as a country. So we're dependent on other parties rather than controlling. And again, if you also look at the refineries, the infrastructure in the oil and gas industry, we've tried to do turnaround maintenance several times, invested and so on. But it has also been said by analysts that there has been underinvestment in the oil and gas sector. So the it's actually a welcome development to have a PIA finally come to be. And then today is a landmark in the annals of Nigeria's history when the president inaugurated the board of the NNPC Limited, not just NNPC Corporation, now NNPC Limited, meaning that it's going to run as a private concern, able to compete with other concerns across the world. You have the Saudi Aramco, you have the SNEPCO, you have the Chinese ones, you have different ones, you have Shell, BP, you have Chevron. All of these are billion-dollar going concerns that are doing very well. If you check out the 10 biggest companies in the world, you see different ones, including the Russian companies and other ones. All of them are supplying oil across the world. So like the Yorubas, we say 20 children born the same year can never play together for 20 years. Now that we are deciding to go the way global companies run and observing global best practices and running like private sector companies, even though NNPC is still going to be 100% owned by the government, but now by the PIA law, it has to respect the law, the KAMA law, the Companies and Allied Matters Act, where it will be monitored, and then, like the president said, there will be corporate governance that ensures that it runs like a company should run. Transparency. We should ensure that corruption is totally obliterated, and they have to be answerable to the people of Nigeria and whoever the shareholders will be. I hope I'll be one of them.
We're all stakeholders. Now, Mr. Odion, how can this development actually reposition the Nigerian petroleum industry to a commercially viable and competitive industry in line with global best dynamics and best practices?
Thank you, Linda. I think, like the guest in the studio mentioned, it's a good day in terms of positioning NNPC Limited as one of as a global oil producer, and the importance of the board should not be lost on Nigerians. I mean, we're used to knowing NNPC as being run from Aso Rock or from the minister's office. But with NNPC now transmuting into a limited liability company and now a formal board being inaugurated, the role of the board is clearly spelled out in the Act, the Petroleum Industry Act. And if we were to stick to those roles, you would see that the role of the board that has just been inaugurated is very critical to NNPC achieving its performance. So if you looked at Section 63 of the Act, you would see several rules of the board. One of it is guiding NNPC to achieve its corporate performance, monitoring the corporate performance of NNPC, and also instilling corporate best practices. And that is what the president actually harped on: good corporate governance, where people have called NNPC a black box, a black hole, opaque, whatever. So hopefully, with the board now being given the freedom to make sure that principles of sound corporate governance are instituted in NNPC, we would see an NNPC that is able, that should be able to compete favorably with the Aramcos, the Petrobras, and the other IOCs that is actually partnered with in terms of developing our oil and gas resources. The other part of it is the president tasked the board on achieving Nigeria's commitment to our carbon emission goals. If you recall, the president in, I think, September, October, COP26 in Glasgow had committed that Nigeria would have zero carbon emissions by 2060. 2060 may look far, but if you look at what is required to get to that goal, it's a lot, and it starts from the board of NNPC ensuring that the president's mandate or the NNPC starts to act in a manner that would reduce its carbon emission, number one, focus on gas, because gas is now treated as a clean energy fuel for now, a transition fuel. So we would expect that the board will focus on ensuring that the president's commitment for Nigeria to achieve net zero emissions by 2060 starts with their inauguration. But in any case, like Obinaya had mentioned, this is a good day for Nigeria. We expect that the NNPC will now run as a proper limited liability company with sound corporate governance practices, which would bode well for Nigeria as a whole.
Now, Mr. Obinaya, what are the other key areas the board must focus on? He has mentioned a few, one or two. What other areas must they focus on, especially in this COVID era?
Okay, just to say that even before the passing of the bill, there were few contentions from stakeholders, especially host communities. Between the House of Representatives and the Senate, we saw the debates going on the voting pattern, especially the percentage that should go to host communities and the percentage that will go to Frontier Exploration Fund. Now, the Frontier Exploration Fund ended up being 30%, but that is for oil and gas. And then the host communities fund ended up being 3%. At a point, there was this push by some members of the House of Reps and Senate for it to be 5%, but it ended up 3%. So there are still a few hot air under the collar, few challenges around that area. So one of the first things I recommend to this board is, first of all, to do three things. You have to do a stakeholders mapping. Who are the stakeholders? Identify every one of them. The next one is to do a stakeholders engagement. Engage all the stakeholders. Try to pacify ruffled feathers to ensure that we are all on board, on the same team. The last one is stakeholders management, where you begin to use the activities of the NNPC to show utmost good faith to the people of the Niger Delta and the eastern part of Nigeria that lay the goods that produce the goods that lay the golden egg. So talking about post-COVID-19, you need to understand that in the past 1 year and a half, starting from early 2020 when COVID-19 hit, investment by the IOCs, international oil companies, dropped drastically. So you see a lot of the oil servicing companies almost closing shop because with lower investment, they are not able to retain staff. So a lot of job losses happen in oil and gas industry. The implication of that too is with lower investment in the oil industry, income to Nigeria and other countries that play in the oil business also dropped. So with the PIA post-COVID-19, we would expect that running as a private concern, just like Saudi Aramco and just like my friend said via Zoom, you have Petrobras, you have the Saudis, the Brazilians, the Russians. The way they run their businesses, where with this act, we're able to attract both private and public investment, domestic and international, whereby investment will come in and people will see transparency, corporate governance, and a business that is being run with every hand on the table. And not like he said, not like a business that runs from the minister's office or in the Aso Rock. This time around, it runs as a business that can be held accountable. By implication, people will trust the organization enough to invest in it. Post-COVID, you need to also understand that the drumbeat has changed, so the dance step has to change. You need to understand that post-COVID-19, businesses are being run differently. You're not going to run brick and mortar all the time. A lot of things will run virtually, meaning that technology, you need to upskill the staff of the former NNPC Corporation, now limited. You need to upskill them, meaning that they need to come up to speed. And as you run the upstream regulatory agency and the downstream regulatory agency, where you have merged PEF with PPRA and all of those companies, you need to begin to find out who fits where. So there's a lot of realignment and reorganization that needs to happen post-COVID-19, and then you need to invest in infrastructure. Investing in infrastructure implies several things, both human and material.
Okay, we'll go into that after the break. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms. For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24,
news and more news.
Welcome back. The program is Nigeria Today, and we are discussing the task ahead, the NNPC board, and our guests are still here with us. Obinaya Urakpa, a personal development expert and entrepreneur, and joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Odion Omofuman, energy expert and CEO of New Hampshire Group. Now, Odion, in what way will the PIA actually stop gas flaring in the Niger Delta and improve the life of host communities?
Good question. The PIA pretty much recognizes that Nigeria is more of a gas country than an oil country, right? So what the PIA has done is to develop an authority called the Midstream and Downstream Agency that will focus on gas development. So if you looked at the provisions of the PIA, a lot of it is focused on how to monetize Nigeria's abundant gas resources that are being flared, wasted, rejected into the ground, or pretty much not just even explored at all. And there are a lot of provisions in terms of fiscal incentives for people who want to, or investors who want to go into gas development, both at the midstream, at the upstream side, the midstream section, and the downstream segment of the industry, of the value chain. Because if you explore for gas and produce the gas, there has to be a midstream component that would either transport the gas from where it's produced at the field to a processing entity. And there's also the downstream side where you have to pretty much create commercial entities or outlets where people can buy the gas, for instance, LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. You can imagine how LPG has spiked from 3,600 naira per 12 kg to what it is now. I hear it's over 10,000 naira. You know, so that investment, the PIA would enable more people go into the development, commercialization, and utilization of gas. So the PIA works for us in terms of ensuring that our gas resources are pretty much harmonized. But before we move to the next question, I'd just like to say something about the role of the board. If I listen to our guest in the studio, I think a lot of what he had mentioned, I'm a bit concerned that we might see the board as part of the management of NNPC. A lot of the roles we are tasking the board, they are literally, that's why you have NNPC, that's why NNPC has a management. So I think we must be careful not to give the board roles that the management of NNPC should ordinarily take on as their regular duty, because the board chairman is a non-executive chairman. So that means they're not involved in the day-to-day operations of NNPC. So it's important to at least mention this so that people do not expect that Margaret Okadibo will now become the GMD of NNPC, or when we have fuel issues, we run to her and say, why is NNPC increasing fuel and everything? You know, the role of the board is clearly spelled out in the PIA, and we must make sure that the board lives and performs its duties according to what has been prescribed in the Section 63 of the PIA, and also its responsibilities under CAMA.
Now, Obinaya, as a rejoinder to your closing remarks before we went on the break, do you see the inauguration of this board as a major step in the ongoing transition to a more viable petroleum industry that will attract investment to support our economic growth and generate employment to millions of our people?
Yes, I do. And just to give peace to Audio, I understand that quite well, but if the president thought it wise to, in his speech, bring up issues around corporate governance, issues around running as a profitable concern like it is done elsewhere, then it's important that the board, even without running NNPC Limited on a day-to-day basis, keeps our eyes on the ball of whatever is going to be happening there. So I strongly believe that, let's just say all hands on deck, including Odion, all of us outside the NNPC, this is our golden goose that lays the geese that lays the golden egg. So we can't even allow NNPC to sleep, because when it happens to NNPC, we'll probably need to get visas and run out. But I don't want to run out at my age, and I'm sure Odion doesn't want to run out. So I understand Odion, and he's 100% right. What we are concerned about is that there won't be too much interference in the day-to-day running of the NNPC. So to just answer you directly, Lydia, I strongly believe that with the board in place, and with the reason they have been put in place is because we believe they also have experience, and they can bring that experience to bear and can act as advisors to Mili Kyari and the rest of the team that will do the day-to-day management as GMD and the rest of the GEDs and so on that will be running, and the other different aspects of this whole venture we're all going into. So we expect that they will also bring their wide network of contacts, because there must be a reason why they have been selected into this board. The reason you have board, even if for a private firm, is that your board helps to grow your business. So we're expecting that they will use their wide contacts, which they have made over the years, and also as patriotic Nigerians, to reach out. And then other patriotic Nigerians in diaspora, which was why I was very clear when I said stakeholders mapping. Who are the stakeholders? We have Nigerians in diaspora. We have friends of Nigeria across the world. We have development partners. We have persons who are interested in the survival of Nigeria. We have the ECOWAS countries, over 15 countries that are interested in the success of Nigeria. We have the African Union that has our own Agenda 2063. We have the SDG goals, or 17 goals, that is ensuring that by 2030, a few things should happen across 17 lines. So everyone is interested in the success of Nigeria, and NNPC Limited is at the heart of that success. So the investment we are expecting should come, and like Odion said, it should go into different sectors of the economy to ensure that we move from where we were before to a place that we can call El Dorado.
Yes. Now, let me ask my final question. Odion, President Buhari urged the board to ensure strict compliance with corporate governance principles that place premium on doing business with the highest ethical standards, integrity, and transparency. What exactly is he saying?
Well, what the president has basically reiterated is what is already in the Company and Allied Matters Act, the role of the board. Now, as with any board, we expect that boards have very clear responsibilities of ensuring the best levels of corporate governance. Now, corporate governance in the oil and gas sector requires means that you must ensure transparency of contracting processes. You must ensure that the business objectives of NNPC Limited, as spelled out by the Act, is clearly adhered to by the management. You must ensure that people and staff, they are properly motivated and remunerated. You must ensure that financial statements of NNPC Limited, they are put out as and when due audited. And you must ensure that there's that reporting of NNPC's activities and performance objectives to NNPC shareholders, currently the federal government, and the public, as Binaya has mentioned. So that is literally that's what the president, I think, must have meant. Ensuring that all the structures of NNPCs, the various units of NNPCs, the management teams are properly structured. People are not promoted when they're not supposed to be promoted. There are very clear criteria for rewarding staff performance. There are clear criteria for monitoring and setting targets. So in a nutshell, the president just reiterated what exactly KAMA has put out as the responsibilities of the board. And we expect that if the board does not live up to it, the provisions of Section 64 of the PI will apply, where the board can also be suspended or terminated where there's conflict of interest.
I know that's a huge task on their shoulders, and of course, we believe that they will deliver on this assignment that has been given to them. That's it on tonight's episode of Nigeria Today. Mr. Odion Omofoman, energy expert and CEO of New Hampshire Group, thank you for your thoughts, sharing your thoughts with us. And Obinaya Urakwa, a personal development expert and entrepreneur, we appreciate your insight. We also thank you, our viewers, for always being there. Don't forget, you can also watch this and other episodes of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Thank you for watching. I'm Lydia Ochi. Have a wonderful evening.